Hi, I'll start. My name's Robbie, and I've been to a lot of these meetups that VJ organizes. So I want to say thank you again very much for doing that. It's always great learning new things and be able to touch on things I don't get to do a whole lot in my day-to-day work. Mostly I'm a back-end kind of guy, but every once in a while I get some front-end work, and it kind of bounces around between different things like Angular and React. And so it's nice coming to these meetups where it's sort of a lot of things, all things JavaScript. So
that's great.
Yeah, and I like your book. So BJ wrote a great book. So
thank you. Yeah, that's awesome. Robbie, what's your backend? What are you?
I'm a Microsoft .NET guy. So
okay.
Yeah, so it's kind of neat because as technologies develop, there ends up more and more overlap in a lot of these technologies. Like NPM and there's just a lot of things that are overlap now. So it's not. It used to be where there was kind of the LAMP stack and there was the Microsoft stack, and they didn't have a whole lot in common. But now, if you're looking at front end technologies, they're shared across. Whether your back end is in Node, or if you're using MacBooks or you're a Windows guy, there's a lot of things that you have in common.
Awesome. Well, yeah, definitely want to continue that discussion towards the end of the group. So if you're hanging around, let me know. Yeah, I gotta keep the thing going. So does anybody else want to introduce themselves? Go ahead.
Oh, hey, I'm Steve. I'm joining out of state from Colorado. Primarily, I've been joining these meetups for a couple months now with the COVID pandemic going on. So I'm primarily a PHP developer on the back end and Vue.js on the front end.
Perfect. That's pretty cool. I'm a PHP developer and use React on the front end. So
cool.
Same boat. All right. Anyone else? We have Carlos Molina. He says that he has no camera mic, but he's from Houston, Texas, and he is a software engineer working with the MERN stack, Angular and React, plus C#, ASP, and SQL. Those are a lot of technologies to know. So hats off to you, Carlos.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Hi, my name is Kai. I'm from Orange County, California. I'm a .NET full stack developer. I work on apartments.com, a website for, I'm not trying to do a sales pitch, but that's just want to provide a background. And, I enjoyed working on both the back end and front end. Front end, I mostly do Angular framework. So glad to be here and learn more about the front end part, because that part is, fun as well.
Very nice. All right. Anyone else? There are a lot of people on the call today, 18 people so far.
Oh, it's good that we have a mix of knowledge base here. You have, we have .NET, PHP, obviously JavaScript. Do we have any Java developer here?
Doesn't seem like it. Some people probably have touched it, I'm sure. Oh, let's see here. Paul Wolfson writes, no mic, no cam, but I'm a .NET software engineer from Woodland Hills, and I am using raw JavaScript on the front end and .NET on the back. Okay.
Well, let me jump in and talk a little bit then.
Sure.
Personally, I am a .NET guy. I've been working on the embedded side of the development, specifically Windows CE, for better than 15 years. And one of the main things that I've been doing is actually helping my customer to set up the environment so that they can use C# to develop embedded application. And that went pretty well for, for me in terms of a career thing for, better part 15 years until Microsoft decided to drop Windows CE. Right? So as part of that, I went into different direction for a while and decided to jump into the enterprise development environment because I have a mix of knowledge. And obviously my background is .NET, so I work with a lot of .NET stuff. And being in the enterprise nowadays, typically you have to deal with some form of cross-platform, which is basically you're talking about a web app on the browser. So that's where JavaScript comes in. And that's the reason I joined your group. Probably what, 3 years now?
Yeah.
So anyway, so that's why I'm here. I appreciate you spend a lot of efforts running these meetup, especially the one in person. That takes a lot of efforts. I appreciate that, and I do gain a lot of value to that.
Just real quick, somebody is saying that they can't hear. So if you're not able to hear the audio, just if that's largely the case, can you guys kind of just raise your hand with Zoom, or if you want to chat, you can use that too. I don't know if that's the case for everybody.
You might want to type that because if they can't hear you, then they can't.
That's true. Okay, if you can't. Okay, he says that's fine. I think it should be fine. Okay, but yeah, so Samuel has a really awesome background. When I was just kind of reading the the event information for today, I kind of noticed that he has like a lot of awards in addition to his work. So he is a most valuable professional. He got that award 14 times from 2005 to 2018 from Microsoft. That is amazing. Maybe you could elaborate on that, Samuel.
Well, I don't know if you guys know about the MVP program. It's just a award that Microsoft recognize that you contribute to a certain focus area in terms of technology or community. I've been working on the Windows Embedded stuff from probably the first couple of years when I started it. And as part of that, I also engage in different forum and community, basically initially to learn. And to me, one of the way to learn is to share. Right? I learned to teach. That forced me to learn it better.
Sure.
And I engage a lot with academia. I actually got involved with a couple of projects that sponsored by Microsoft to develop a teaching curriculum for university. So I was involved in created a embedded system curriculum. It's sort of a junior senior class. It was fully funded by Microsoft, working with a professor from Georgia Tech. And we literally take the professor out for a whole year to work on these curriculums. And then as part of that, we also got additional funding to translate that curriculum into a few other languages, like German, Japanese, Korean, and Chinese. And that's one of the reasons I've been maintaining that MVP award for all this year, because I was part of that program. And I also been participate a lot of these student competition throughout this year.
That is amazing. I'm going to share a link to the MVP program for people interested in checking it out. Maybe like if you have time, through this meetup today, you can give some insight in how to apply and basically kind of, what are your thoughts, or like, what kind of advice can you give to people as far as mentorship to do these kind of programs?
Well, over the year, actually, a lot of people ask me, what does it take, to become a Microsoft MVP? Okay? And there are a lot of benefit for it. For one thing, from a resume perspective, it's a very strong credential, right? And the other thing is we have access to their enterprise MSDN subscription, which costs quite a bit of money. Right? Somebody's having fun there.
Yeah. Please, as a reminder, if you're not currently speaking, mute yourself. Thank you.
Okay. But anyway, I initially, when I got the MVP award, I actually didn't know what it is. It was someone else that you cannot apply for. It's actually someone else has to basically recommend you.
Wow. Okay.
Right. So it was because of what I did at the time that somebody recognized what I did and basically nominated me. And initially, I didn't even know what it was. It's okay. It's just another marketing scheme that they run. Right? And there was a lot more benefit back then. When I initially got it in 2005, they asked me to participate in one of the annual summit that they have. They actually pay for the flight, hotel room, and a lot of other stuff, to be there. So I said, okay, so it's free, right? So I ended up went there, and it kind of blew me the first time in terms of how powerful these events are, and that got me to engage in the community. Right? And I said the only way that you can get it is truly be a community participant, join, share, and help other people. And if you've done enough of that, somebody will recognize you. Right?
Excellent. Well, okay, let's dive into your presentation for now, and then we can continue afterwards, like the networking aspect, as well as any questions. How do you want to take questions today, Sam? Just let me know.
Well, I'm trying to wrap this up really quick. Right? I have some sample code, of course, and I uploaded the code, to GitHub repo. So you have access to that, and I also deployed the sample on my Azure cloud. So all the attendee can actually have access to the sample app and kind of look at what it actually do. Right? So with a working app along with the source code, you can figure it out. Right? I intentionally make it easy for people to be able to understand it, even if you don't know too much about C#. If you have other language background, pretty much you can understand what it is. I try not to abstract too many things, so that the code is readable even for entry-level folks.
Sure.
Yeah. And so what I would do is I just have a few slides, just want to go through really quick, and then I'm just jumping into the code and walk through the code. Right? And I like to do that ASAP and leave some time toward the end for people to ask questions.
Okay.
And input and whatnot.
Okay. So if you have questions, basically hold them until the end, or I guess you can use the chat.
Right.
All right. So let's go ahead.
Can you see my screen there?
Yep.
Okay. So let me just go ahead and jump into the show here. So, oops, sorry.
Yeah, we
so
see your face.
That's sort of a an overall background about myself. I've been in the computer industry since the DOS era. I can't tell you how old I am. And I've been doing a mix of different things and authored a couple of books on Windows CE. right? And we talk about my MVP status. That was some of the things that I've been doing there. Right. Now, today, what I'd like to talk about is a little bit about internet-enabled application. Right? We hear a lot of people talk about IoT, this and IoT that. Right? I want to touch on that a little bit, and then I'll talk about the enterprise app development environment. Right? Then we jump into the codes. Right? Now, a little bit more fun thing. This is a robot that I work on. Probably around 2005, 2006. And you can notice on the back here, right, you can see the VGA port, you can see the USB port, you can see the keyboard, mouse, and that's the antenna for the Wi-Fi. So basically what I did is, I put a small embedded board in the robot, and basically running CE and have a webcam and it had a couple of motors that drive this thing so that you can remotely control it. Right? Back then, I have a Windows phone that actually remotely control this robot. Right? And that's sort of the fun thing that I used to do. Right? Now, in terms of internet-enabled application, going back 10, 15 years ago, we look at it as embedded device, embedded application. Basically, an embedded device, is a small computer, right? You use it every day. You drive a car, when you go, fill up gas, you have an interface there that, take your credit card and, let you select the type of gas and start pumping. And there are actually a lot of pieces of stuff in that, in the pump there. Right? You have the UI that engage you to process the process there, and then the control in it, they actually control the pump, measuring the amount of gas that being pumped, at the same time calculate the cost and whatnot, and all of this also linked to the cash register, and to do all the other transaction stuff there. Right? Think about it. There are 6, 7 embedded device in that particular environment for every pump there, right? And somebody has to write code for those devices, right? That's kind of the environment I work in, and that's just kind of one of them. If you go into, let's say a Walmart or Target, you see, sometimes you see people that dealing inventory have this, big, kind of like scanner with keyboard there, right? A lot of those devices actually running Windows CE, right? And they are connected wirelessly, right? And then you have stuff in industrial control, in utility, and all those also have a different kind of embedded device. Right? Now, in a larger environment, you can look at, let's say, the utility environment. You look at a smart grid. You have different kind of system from a very large scale enterprise backend, right, to a very, very small device. Let's say nowadays, the utility meter actually are wireless. Going back 10, 15, 20 years ago, there used to be a guy going around the neighborhood to read a meter, and they actually have to manually read and lock the meter. Right? Nowadays, you don't see those guys anymore, okay? Because most of the utility meter, either gas or water or electric, most of them have some form of networking, either wirelessly or connect through whatever connectivity that they have, right? And get back to their central site and do the processing and do the billing and all those things. Right? Now, in a nutshell, that is part of the industrial IoT that a lot of people talk about. Right? Now, within this environment, there are a lot of enterprise apps that deal with the management, the financial, and customer support aspects of things, right? That involve a lot of application development to serve different purpose. And that's kind of what I like to touch on a little bit as well. Right? If you look at a enterprise application, right? And just kind of think about it. You have app that has a kind of UI and interface that allow a person to use the app, like a web app or a native mobile app or a native desktop app, right? That's an app that allow a human to engage with the app. Right? And then the app, either talk to a database, talk to other app, or do something. It always involves some form of data or engage with another endpoint to do some processing. Right? So let's say, it's common nowadays that you write a web app front end, whether you JavaScript, Angular, React, or whatnot. A lot, quite often the app actually would call a web service, an API somewhere, to pull the data and populate the data, right, on the screen. Right? Whether it's a web app, a native mobile app, or a native desktop app, generally it do the same thing. Right? It has an interface, right? And then it get data somewhere and it process data somehow. Right? And then there's another form of app that are machine to machine. You have a lot of those. Like, that's where we have sensor device. Right? The sensor collect data, and then it has to store and save those data somewhere. Right? So it talk to a server somewhere, and then the sensor data has to be processed to do to serve purpose. Right? Let's say if you let's say nowadays it's pretty hot. So let's talk about the air conditioning system, for example. Right? You have a sensor that detect the temperature, and then based on the temperature level, it will send a control signal to turn on the aircon, right? When it reaches a certain degree, and then turn it off when it cool down to a certain degree. Right? That sort of thing is a machine to machine kind of communication, and there are different type of protocol on the back end, and it can get fairly complex. And so again, those are the more lower layer stuff that I'm not going to touch into. I just want to kind of give you an overview of where some of these enterprise app scenarios are. Right. So another thing that we hear a lot about nowadays is the term big data or analytics. Right? So basically, you have a lot of device collect a lot of data, and the data only have value if you can extract some information from it, or to get the data to tell you something. Right? And that is actually the challenge for a lot of developers, because dealing with those scenario, there's some fairly complex low-level stuff, right? And you have different range of data. You have data that in the gigabyte range, and then you have also the big the really big data in the terabyte range. Right? You have people that deal with data set in the range of like a couple hundred terabytes, and it take a whole different mindset to deal with different caliber of data. In general business, we commonly use SQL, right? So we use a query statement, right, to basically pull a set of data to do very basic business analysis. Things like we sell a bunch of different products. We want to know which product move faster, or which product make profit, or we want to know which region or which sales team perform better, right? And those are general business data. And those, from my perspective, I don't think of those as big data, because from a scale of today's database, these kind of business data are fairly small. Right? And then you also have a lot of people that make use of things like Salesforce, basically their customer relationship management, right, to kind of keep track of customer activity. And then there are a lot of also analysis that people need to do, for those kind of system, right? So, because of my engagement in the academic environment, I have a lot of student entry-level developer, and come to me and ask, what does it involve to be, an enterprise developer or developer in different environments, right? And there are a lot of people talk about full stack development. Like, okay, I'm a full stack developer, right? To me, the term full stack is kind of vague, right? For the web development environment, when you talk about a full stack developer, you're talking about a guy that be able to write some front end code and some back end code, right? The reality is this: in computer, when you talk about full stack technology, there are actually many layers, right? So I'm not going to get into that. So let's just talk about some of the knowledge base needed to be an enterprise development or work in the enterprise application development environment, right? Now, the challenge that a lot of the new developers have today is that there are many options to choose from, right? You have native app for all different scenarios, from Android phone, tablet, Android TV, iPhone, iPad, and then you have desktop native app for different environment, and then you have a variety of IoT, embedded device, wearable, whatnot. And then you have a broad range of language and technology, C, C++, C#, Java, JavaScript, Object-C, and then you have a large collection of framework, Angular, React, Vue, right? It's just countless. Right? And then on top of that, the environment also shift from working on actual computer hardware to a virtualized environment in the cloud, right? So you have a mix of cloud, hybrid cloud, and then you talk about development for serverless, container, and all different acronyms that people created, and they actually create kind of a confusion for a lot of these new developers, right? In terms of cloud, hybrid cloud, serverless, or container, in a nutshell, they're the same thing. They're just an environment. If you can set up the development environment to write code, in your language of choice, it doesn't matter. It's just an environment, right? And then beside the core skill, in the enterprise environment, you deal with typically a lot of different system, right? You have that connected through different networks, so you have to have some level of understanding about networking, and then obviously you have to be able to access different kind of data, right? Because we're talking about accessing data all the time, regardless of what kind of app you work with. And security is another concern, right? So you can write a code that work well, but break the security, and that has very little value, because security is a huge liability in the enterprise. Right? So in the enterprise, you have to have multiple skill set, right? You have to know different language. At least you have to know JavaScript to deal with the web on the front end, and then you have to know something else in the back end, and you need to be able to access different kind of database through network, and you have to deal with security, right? It's like, let's say if I'm going to call a web API or a web service, there have to be some form of access control, right? Let's say things like Java Web Tokens, or some form of security token, right? And in the enterprise, people use different computer, Windows desktop, Linux, Mac, and then you have people that bring their own device, like they bring an iPhone, they bring an Android phone, they bring an iTablet, right? And so you have to be able to create app that support all of those devices, right? And to be able to do that, the obvious choice for most of the time would be a browser-based application, right? So just basically, I like to call that just web apps. So it's an application that runs in web. Right? To do that, regardless of the back-end language that you're using, you have to know JavaScript. You have to be able to deal with HTML and CSS to do some basic UI stuff. Even though you don't need to be a UX developer, really artistic, but you have to be able to know how to deal with the front end to engage with a UX developer. Right. And from my perspective, the key knowledge base that an enterprise developer have to have is that you need to understand business management's concern. And it's all about money, basically, at the end of the day. They pay you a lot of money to be in that role, and obviously they want good return on the investment. So you have to understand management's thinking in terms of short-term, mid-term, and long-term consideration. Right? Sometimes you may have to write a one-off app just to take care of some immediate thing, right? And then that app may be only used once or twice, and then that's the end of it. Right? So for app like that, you take a different approach, to hack it out, right? And then you have some short-term thing and a mid-term thing, and then the long-term thing, and for different environment like that, your choice will be a little bit different, right? In terms of code maintenance and other aspects. Right? Cost is always a concern for management, right? They have to think about the upfront development costs and ongoing maintenance, right? And then there are also the consideration for outsourcing, versus internal development, right? And then they have to look at cost and benefit. A business manager really don't care how a developer get the app done, as long as the app deliver the value that they look for. They don't care whether you use PHP in the back end, you use Java, or you run C or C#. They don't care. They only care is the end result. When they run the app, can they get the information that they needed the way that they wanted it? Right? That's it. That's the bottom line. And they want to pay as little as possible, and they want to get it done as quickly as possible. Right? So as an enterprise developer, the key objective always is, how can I deliver something quick with minimal cost that meet the requirement that my manager expect me to do? Right, so in a nutshell, I sort of outline, a sort of general thing that what is required to be a .NET enterprise developer. Obviously you have to adopt good programming practices, and that enable you to write code that is maintainable for long term. And and you have to have sufficient C# coding skill. Right? Generally, you don't go in and develop something from ground zero. A lot of times you will jump in and join an organization, and they already have an in-house code base that's been there for a few years, and they have a mix of different developer work on it, and they'll write code with a mix of different technology, and often I find a lot of them write some very abstract code. So if you don't understand these advanced core language skill, is difficult to understand these code, right? And data access by far is an important thing in enterprise. Right? There always some form of you know, database in the back end that you need access to. Right? So you have to have a mix of database access knowledge base. Right? Moving forward, .NET Core is the future on Microsoft platform. Right? So you're gonna be in the enterprise. You have to be comfortable with ASP.NET Core, and also have to understand some of the framework within ASP.NET, like the MVC, Razor, Blazor, right, and the web API structure that they have. And on top of all that, obviously you have to deal with a browser-based web app. So you have to know HTML, CSS, you have to know JavaScript. Right? TypeScript basically is JavaScript with some type management built in. And you have to know some of these common framework, like Angular, React, Vue. Within the .NET environment, I find that Angular is fairly common. I think mainly because it was adopted early on, and there are a lot of older code base that started with Angular, so they kind of continue with it. In terms of longer term future, I actually kind of like Vue in terms of how they approach in the frameworks. Right? And security moving forward is a problem that will not go away. Right? So if you plan to be working in the enterprise, you have to understand cybersecurity, right? And you have to understand, in addition to the cybersecurity aspect, you have to understand, data privacy concern as well. But those are liability things that the corporation, pay a lot of attention to. Right? Now, there's so many stuff out there. We simply don't have enough time to learn everything. So one of the things that, as an enterprise developer, you have to accept that it's not possible for you to know everything and be an expert on everything. Right? And you have to, have an open mind to other people's opinions and input. Right? Especially, the people that work in vertical field, they may have experience, from the mistake they make, and they know stuff that may help you solve a lot of problems very quickly. They may not know what you know, but they may know certain things that you don't know. Right? I find that a valuable thing is to learn from others. I learn a lot from other people over the years. Just like this particular JavaScript meetup group, for example. I'm not an expert JavaScript, so I joined this group. So that from time to time I'll drop in to listen in on a talk just to learn a little bit more about JavaScript. So I'm, and the other thing is you have to be an active learner, right? But you have to avoid information overload. They're just far too easy to gather too many information, and then you just simply don't have time to absorb everything. Okay. So that's pretty much my slide deck there. And I want to jump into code. Before I do that, I want to share this here. I upload the code. There'll be two apps I'm going to walk through. I upload the code to my GitHub repo there. And I also deployed these two apps. It's actually live right now. You can access the app there. Right? Let me just jump into that. So, okay, so this one here is actually a ASP.NET Core web app, right? And what I'm doing here is it's actually a web API backend, right? So let me just go and pull the API here, right? So this particular API is actually pull the data like in the form of a JSON, right? So as you can see here, it's an array of JSON data, right? So that's like, yeah, well, actually a JSON object there, and each object have different data there, right? Now, get into here. And here is a MVC Razor app that actually pull up a customer list here, right? Now in the enterprise, dealing with tabular data is still very common, right? You know what? Let me pull up the other app to show you here. This is actually should be later on. This is the. Let's touch on this here. Now, this here is actually an ASP.NET web form. To the .NET developer, we tend to look at this as a legacy app. It's an older technology. So moving forward, web forms will not be supported on ASP.NET Core. So this particular app here is actually written on the ASP.NET framework 4.7. Right now, as you can see here, this is a list of customer order. Right? So in business, a business manager typically want to see performance data. Like in this scenario here, I want to see customer order. Right? So here's a list, right? Then generally a business manager wants to see stuff like, okay, I want to look at things by customer. And so let's say I want to look at things by customer by period. So let's say, let me just go ahead and put some filter here. So let's say I'm gonna go from January 1st, 2019 to December 31st, 2019. So what I do here, I just put in a filter to limit the data, between January 1st and December 31st. So basically for all the data within the year 2019, right? So that'll give me all the data, right? Now, without any other sorting, right, it's just raw data, right? And I can basically sort the data based on the different heading here. When I click on, let's say, customer name here, it will sort the data based on customer name, right? And if I click it again, it basically just reverse sorting. It goes from descending to ascending, right? Or I can sort it by country, just clicking on the country heading. Right? So you can see here, sort by country here, right? And I can sort by sales rep, right? And then at the bottom here, you can see this number here. This is a tally, basically the total dollar amount, right, for the order total columns here, right? Now, a business manager typically want to see, dissect the data, in different way, and that's what this app is created for. Let's say I want to look at, subtotal by company, for example. So now I basically resort the data by company, and then I would generate a subtotal for each of the company here, right? Or I want to look at the subtotal by country. I want to do, I want to see how much business I do in each country, in 2009. I can do that. Right? Or I want to look at, by sales rep, right? And a subtotal by there, right? Now in this scenario here, I may not care about the detail, right? I just want to see the number, right? I can hide the detail. So I just see the list of the sales rep and their performance, right? And then on top here, I also have another layer of filter. I can basically look up, data specifically. Now, let's say I want to look up data for UK. Let's enter UK there, and it filter everything else, only look for UK. Right? Or I want to look at all the companies start with A, right? So our company A or B, right? Or I want to look for a specific company and go in here and type in the company's ID, right? And so that give me all this company here. Right? Or I can look for specific order and just pull up that order. Right? So as you can see here, this is a a pretty flexible data presentation here. Right now, on top of all that, let me do that. In business, people still deal with Excel worksheet quite a bit. Right? So what I can do here is I create an Excel export, and what that does is that it download it basically create a file, an Excel file for me dynamically based on whatever the display is showing here. So let me open that up. So now I have an Excel spreadsheet that basically contain the same data as the web page here. Right? And so this is this is actually based on this example is actually based on a project I work on. Right? They want to view data in variety of variety of filter, and then they want to be able to save whatever view that they created to a spreadsheet. Right? And once they put into a spreadsheet, they can do whatever that they needed to do. Right? Now this particular version here, if you look at the navigation bar here, you can see that is an ASPX file, which is basically a web form. Right? Now, let me click on here. As you can see here, this is an HTML file, right? But it's actually pulling the exact same data, and it has basically the same behavior. Just like the web form, but it's an HTML file. Right? Now, in HTML, I don't have a mechanism to export to an Excel file easily. And so what I do here is I basically create a CSV file. Right? And a CSV file, you can open it with Excel as well. It just not format as 9. It just doesn't have the pretty format I can do with a native Excel file. But still, the data is there, and once the data is there, I can format it relatively easy. So I don't have to manually enter the data. Right. I just kind of walk through this thing to show you, how the app function. Right. Then I'm gonna go into the code. Right. So let me get to my code here. This is the JSON. Let me get to the web form. Okay, so this is the web form project that I walked through just now. So as you can see here on the ASP.NET, the ASPX file here, basically is an HTML file. but it has some syntax that is native to web form, right? But in a nutshell, it is HTML. And then it has a what we call a code behind file, which is a C# file. And this is where the data is being pulled, right? So let me kind of close this up here. Okay, so we look at the form here. There are a couple of diff. Right, so so just like a typical HTML, this is the table, right, for the header, right? And then they're basically a different section here. This is the report header, right? So you can see here there's a table within it, and then you can see this is the where the report body is, right? So you can see the header listing right there. Right? So this is the HTML there, and the code behind basically would call this get data routine and basically load the data to a collection that I defined. This is a collection of rows here, right? And so each row of data basically would get populate from the data reader that it pull the data from the database row by row, and then as it populate the row, then it add the row to the collection. Right? So I kind of use this little routine here to set the order for the data. So I can order the data by customer ID, by company name, by country, by sales rep, right? Now, you may be wondering, well, you can actually retrieve the data from a SQL Server order a certain way. Yes, the data coming from SQL servers already order a certain way, right? But I needed to have a tag in terms of identify what the data, how the data are organized. Then when I actually display the data, right, that's when I use the ordering there to calculate the subtotal, because the data would come in group. Let's say the data grouped by company, right? So you have the data that come in row by row belong to the same company in the same batch, and I will group them as I would actually paint a table and then group them and then do a subtotal as I actually populate a table, right? So that's what this is for, right? If you walk through the code, you can see that there. Right? So this is the web form version of code. Right? Now, in addition to web form, I replicated the same thing in a HTML file. Right? So here, in this file here, this is pure HTML code, nothing else. It's just HTML. That's it. Right? And then here's the JavaScript that actually use Ajax to call a web service. Right? So that's the link to call a web server. This is when I do local developments. I use this one here. Right? This is the link I use when it actually go to production. That's the one that is in the working site right now, right? And so you look at this routine here, it's just a simple XML HTTP request call. I have a little, because I use this a lot, so I actually created a function for that, right? To call a SOAP service, right? Because in the web form, we use a subservers to actually return the data in XML format. Right? So this is a function that I created, right, to basically format the SOAP header when I send the request, and then handle the response back to check for error condition, right? And also to pull the response out, which is an XML document. And so that's what this function call is. Right? So here is where I put in the query filter. These are actually the filtering data, right? Like the day range, from day to day, and what is the order by, and then whether I want to filter the data within a certain customer ID, company name, or country, right? So this is the filtering there, and right? And then once it come back, that's that is where the callback function is to get the XML data. So once I get the data, then I call the display XML data to display the data. Right? So if you look at the display data routine here, the pattern here, even though this is JavaScript, right, but the logic here is very similar to the logic I use in the C# code. So basically, just to go through the list of the XML node and just basically populate the table there. Right? So what I do here, just kind of to simplify things, just basically write everything to a string. Right? So I define the display data string up here, and then you can see going through here, I just basically add all those values to the display data, and then when it's done, I basically just shove everything to the report body, and you go to the HTML, it basically right here, right? So let me go ahead and close it down so you kind of see the structure of the web page. Right, so you can see here, on the top, that's just the form header there. And then we have the report header, right, which is a table. And then we have the report body, another table. And then we have the report footer, another table. Right? So it looked like there's a lot of code, but actually it's pretty straightforward if you basically know where the codes are, right? And in the way that I learned to write JavaScript is that I use this window unload event there to basically execute the JavaScript function, right? I typically like to call this a page manager. So this is a function for this particular page. That way I wrap all the value within within this function to minimize collision with other stuff that people may have on the same app. Right? So this way I have control everything's in here. Right? And then I just initialize this object, right? And then this is called the display init, and then just call the get data routine, which use Ajax to call a web service, get the data, and then populate a table. That's pretty much it, right? So this is the web form there. It's a legacy app. Right? So let me also go over the other app, and then I'm going to open up for some questions. Now this here this app here is an ASP.NET. It's a .NET Core 3.1, but I'm using the ASP.NET framework here. Right? So technically, it is an ASP.NET app here. If you are not familiar with ASP.NET MVC, right? So basically, we have a model, which is the entity data. View is where the displays the data are, right? And so in this case, if I run this app, it basically would display the view, the index view here, which also use the layout is the master view here, and it basically overlay with the index here, right? There are actually quite a few short video on YouTube that talk about ASP.NET Core MVC. If you're interested to learn about it, spend some time to go with it. It's pretty useful to know. Okay? And what I do here is that under the www root here, this is where the static files are. So I created an HTML file here, just like what I did with the other app. It's pure HTML. It's the same structure here. Let me show this up, you can see here. Right, so this is something I just used to show error. Right, so I have a form header, I have the table header, table body, and table footer. Right, and then I have a very similar JavaScript here. Basically, call a web API in this scenario here, and get the data. The difference is this: for this particular app, the data coming back, is in JSON format. Right? So the routine to pull the data, from a JSON array is a little bit different, but the overall logic is identical to the other one. Just the other one is getting data from an XML data set, and this here get data from a JSON data set. That's all it is, right? Right, so let me go ahead and run this app here. So this is the actual web API app that's that I deploy to the Azure right now. Okay, so you can see here, it is getting JSON here. So let's say if I just wanted a specific data, so let's say I'm gonna go order ID, and let's pick an order 10249, 10249. As you can see here, I'm gonna get a single data here, right? So it's just a simple web API, or I can get data for a particular customer, right? So say customer ID, TOMSP, right? So I get all the order for this particular customer here. Right? And so the HTML file that I created for the data, as it run, it basically do the same thing, right? All the user interaction here are controlled by JavaScript, right? If I click here, it basically is a JavaScript event, and it trigger it to do something, right? Oh, let me go over what the code does here for you here. So you look at the click event here. Okay, so here, here are the different click events here, because I just capture event from from different div or different table header here. So basically, once the event is is captured, it will call a refresh display. So if you look at the refresh display here, what I do is I'll go to different component here to basically to see where the click come from, right? Then I'll set the value, so like this case here, if the event comes from day, that means okay, something changed. I need to update it from day value, right? Or if the event comes from let's say the sales rep, right, text box, and I know that I need to update the sales rep value, right? And then here I look for checkbox. I mean that if I want to display subtotal, that means either I check or unchecked it. So again, I'll capture what the value is on that. So so if you look at the click event and then you look at the refresh display, you pretty much can figure out what it does there, right? So in a nutshell, that's pretty much it. In terms of the app, you have access to the code, and there are the two links that you can actually look at an actual working app, right? So let me open the floor up for question if there's any. Hey BJ, I'm gonna pass this back to you.
Sure. Okay. So, all right. I guess I'll put the screen back to me. Or actually, I'll leave it on yours for now. So basically, well done. I liked your presentation. So for everybody watching, I guess round of applause, either chat or if you want to like unmute yourself for a sec, that's fine. And then if you have questions, go ahead and shoot.
Yeah. So if you didn't have a chance to go to those links, yeah. So if you go to this two link here is actually working links. Right, the top one is the .NET Core Web API project. The bottom one is the Web Form projects.
So somebody says, Jose says that was a lot of information, but it was really great. Yeah, any thoughts? Great presentation. Thank you for sharing. I think like the interesting thing for me, I suppose, in watching your presentation is, especially when you were saying, a lot of enterprise solutions like gas stations and, electricity, gauges and all these different devices are using some sort of, Windows, CE, or maybe .NET, the background. So is
More
the
than that,
style pretty similar? Is that kind of what's going on?
well, the embedded environment is quite unique. They actually, there are a lot of variety of code. Right? There are proprietary OS. There's some OS that's just a few hundred K, and they'll write code. Some even write code in very low level C, C++, or even assembly code. Right? Even when you go to casino, right? Think about it. You sit on a casino table, right? They have some funny thing on one side there, right? Those are actually embedded device to do a lot of things, management, tracking, whatnot, right? And some casino, they use chip that have a built-in RFID. So actually, each chip has its own ID to prevent fraud, right? So on some of the modern gaming table, right, under the table, they have machine that actually have a RFID reader, a certain spot. So the dealer, when they put a stack of chip on there, the total is actually calculate for them pretty quick. Right?
That's pretty.
Right? So I mean, there are a lot of computing device everywhere. You just don't think about it, right? And think about it, somebody have to write code for those things. Right? Yeah, it's an interesting world out there because I got involved with a lot of things. I did some casino project. I did stuff with medical device, right? Even you go to a supermarket, for example, right? A lot of supermarket now, they have a monitor for each checkout line, basically, in addition to show you what the cash register is doing, is also another form of advertisement right there, as you go through the line, right?
Right. Okay. Somebody's asking, the JavaScript that you wrote, Paul's asking, is there a way to use React directly in an MVC, like C#?
Yes, you can. Well, basically, it's no different than when you're using, React or Angular with Node.js, right? You're basically calling some kind of web API. It's the same thing, right? What I did there is just basically vanilla JavaScript. So, so it applies to just about, any framework that you want to use.
So as long as you include the basic scripts, or you build the scripts, in NPM or Webpack, you should be able to load those scripts into your MVC.
I mean, regardless whether you use Angular, React, or Vue, okay, you're gonna have to pull the data from somewhere, right? If you know how to pull the data and you know how to parse the data, then if you know React, you can put the data in the view however you want, right? So I think that the challenge for a lot of people is getting to the data, right?
Sure.
Now, for what I did there, I mean, there's some security issue, like the newer browser now, it doesn't allow you to get data, what we call cross-site, resource sharing. So let's say, if your web app is running on website A, and you're trying to get data from website B, right? There are some security that you need to deal with to even be able to get to the data, right? Right. So that is something else. That's a security aspect with it, right? But without thinking about security, basically, in JavaScript, you have basically two options to get data. Either you use AJAX, which is the HTML, the XML HTTP request,
right,
or you fetch, which is the newer one, right? I just happen to been using the AJAX for a long time and familiar with it, so I haven't picked up on fetch yet.
Yeah, actually, I was gonna say, when I was looking at the way you write, like the code, I've seen a lot of older like enterprise applications written this way, where, you'll have all of your C# files, or you'll have your Java files kind of like structured the way you had it.
Right.
And then you'll have your HTML and your CSS in a folder, and then you'll also have, one singular JavaScript file, maybe a utility JavaScript file, where you called your function XML, or I think it was HTTP request. You dropped the XML, and I knew right away that was not a native function. So
Right.
I was thinking, okay, this is your own custom function. So this reminds me of stuff I saw like from back in the day. And actually, that's why I wanted to have this particular meetup, because technically we present always on like a lot of the new stuff. And I think, a lot of the feedback I get sometimes from some of the people who come is, it's really great that, you talked about React or Vue or whatever, but, I'm working with this legacy app and I have no idea how it works and how to include, React or whatever Vue into it. So that's kind of why I wanted to show this older style of code.
Yeah, I mean, but basically, we deal with a lot of what I call black box code, right? So let's say if I generate an Angular app to access my, my API, I mean, I got hundreds of files. And I got, it's like, it just does everything for me there. It's a black box, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, if I get into trouble and I need to, go down the pipe and really to fix some really low level problem, it's a pain, unless it's, it's an app that has, use a lot of stuff, depend a lot on Angular, for a lot of feature and function. Yes, I'll do that. But let's say if I just create something that not entirely dependent on Angular, or React, I actually would rather write my own JavaScript. That way I have full control on everything. Right? So like in this scenario here, I just want to show you this code here. Like, okay, these are very common JavaScript that I use, right? Basically, I want to, get the no value, right? So, so I put it in the utility. That way I don't have to rewrite this over and over again, right? And then in terms of the XML requests, right? Because I call SOAP web service quite often, right? So you have to, formulate the SOAP header correctly. Otherwise, it's a pain to, to do it right. But once you do it right, you have a structure, then, it's easy to follow. So once I get that done, I basically put that into a function. And then, JavaScript, you have to deal with, a lot of, error condition, right? Because you're dealing with uncertainty, with the web, connection may not be there, timeout, right? And you may have sporadic problem, right? So you have to deal with different error condition scenario. Then as you, work with an app long enough, you run into enough problem, then you figure, okay, I need to deal with this problem this way, I need to deal with it that way, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So these are actually just JavaScript, nothing else, right? Yeah, because if I use a framework, then it's really hard to explain things because things kind of abstract all over the place.
Right. Okay, I have a couple more questions for you, but I'm going to open it back up for people. So I noticed Kai shared a link, and it looks like an NPM package. Do you want to elaborate?
Yeah, sorry about that. I just want to, when Sam was talking about writing custom code to, get the job done, the first thing that came to my mind is that package. My point is that like some people like to want to use other people libraries, and it's faster that way. But this is like more than on the extreme side of it. Is just something as simple as checking if a number is even, but you will have to rely on a package.
Okay.
Oh, you mean it? Using framework has advantage and disadvantage. It's like a while back, when I just got started with JavaScript not long ago, and obviously a lot of people use jQuery, right? And I have this guy that always, have issue with me in terms of I'm writing, 10 line of JavaScript code instead of 5 line in jQuery. Well, I like, I may write 10, 20 line of JavaScript code, but that's it. I have no dependency. But if you write 5 line of code in jQuery, get done. Well, behind that, you have to yank in 4,000 lines behind jQuery, right? So that's the other side of it. Is, the question is, do I need a framework? Sometimes, yes, I do, right? Not all the time. Right? If I can do without a framework, I generally would go with just basically writing my own JavaScript. That way, I have full control. If I have a problem, I know exactly where to fix it. Right? And if I use a framework, sometimes if I run the problem, I pull my hair out for days before I figure it out.
All right. And that's actually a fair enough question. I think, in the modern web development, it kind of seems that, just to even get started, you have to npm install like a whole bunch of dependencies, and I don't know, configure some sort of package JSON and then create a whole bunch of different JavaScript files. And then when you have like layers of abstraction like Angular or React where they don't even show you those things, you just kind of start off like a create script. All of that stuff basically gets downloaded. And then the goal is to kind of just print out hello world. It's kind of like overkill, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I talked about this a while back. I don't remember if you know, like everybody caught wind of what I was saying at that time, but you know, you have to remember the computer is basically, you know, just processing, you know, bits and bytes. And basically, like the more you know, write code, the more stuff has to get compiled down, and the more RAM and all kinds of resources you're using under the hood.
Right. Well, that's the other point there is that, you know, when you write code, right, do you know what kind of computing resources and memory resources your code is consuming, right? That's the other key, right? Yeah. Right. So anyway, like in here, I'm going to show you some code here, right? It's C# code, but I can make the point across pretty easily. Now here, it's a data access code here. Right? I'm using some abstraction here. I'm not using entity framework and things like that. I'm still using my own object mapping, right? But it's being abstracted here. Right? Now, if you look at this code here, if I don't explain it to you, right, you will spend a couple hours trying to figure it out, right? And that's why I also create another set here. I'll come back to this here. Right? I create another set here without abstraction, right? So that you can understand it. So here is the same code without, you know, using any abstraction here. So basically, this is you know, direct access, you know, to a SQL server, right? So I, you know, make a connection, right? Then, you know, I create a command object, right? And then, you know, these are just parameter I set for the, you know, the command object here. These are all parameters. They're basically filtered, right? Then I open the connection and then I execute the command, right? And this is, after I execute it, I check, okay, do I have data? Yes, I have data. Then I go to the loop here and basically, you know, populate the data, right? You know, if I have a big table, then, you know, I have to end up writing, you know, a lot more code here, right? Now, if I go back to the one that I have a little bit of abstraction here, right? So here, I go to the an extension method basically to map the data. Right? So this is the extension method, right? So use reflection. So I'm passing in a generic object and I'm passing in the data reader, right? So here, this is a generic thing you can use anywhere. That's why I'm not referencing any names here, right? So if you're just looking at this, you don't know what the heck it does unless, you know, you actually walk the code and see what it does, right? So, you know, it use reflection to basically, you know, get its own property name, right? And then I loop through, you know, the data readers, you know, the field name, which is the table header name, right? Then I compare, you know, is the property name and the field name the same, right? If it is, right, then I check, you know, data type, right? And then depend on the data type, then I'll set the value, right? So this is a very simple, you know, relational object mapping, right? It, you know, it's basically what entity framework is doing, but entity framework doing a lot more than this, right? Because when I use entity framework, it, you know, there are a lot of performance issue, right? So I created my own mapping basically just to do something quick because I'm not using the other stuff, right? Do I use entity framework? Yes, I do. I use it, you know, quite often. It's very useful if you know the reason that you're using it, right? And that's the point I'm talking about, you know, black box library. If you're using a black box, you better learn about that black box. You learn about what it does, the upside, the downside, and what can you do if stuff hit the fan and you need to fix it. Right. So anyway, so in here, in the sample code, I basically create two identical web form here with different data access model here, right? And then this one is the HTML using JavaScript, right? And if you look at the code here, all the logic between the all different one, pretty much the same.
All right. I'm gonna open it up some more for some questions. Anybody else have questions? Or you can also, give feedback as well. How do you feel about the level of this talk? Are you generally able to, follow along? Was it difficult? Was it not difficult? Are you like, oh, why is he even talking about this? Okay, so we have one from Kai. And he says, how do you see application development going in the next decade? That's a good one.
All over the place. Well, you have, you have, let's say, Apple, for example, and they have a pretty big mind share, in the marketplace because iPhone is doing pretty good, right? And then you have Google, that they have a lot of money, so they have really heavy engineering team, right? That because whatever personal or business agenda that they have, they push different technology, like they create this new language environment like Kotlin, for example. Right? They're following, right? And I mean, and then you have a lot of the traditions that have been here that probably will never go away. Like PHP will never go away, right? Even though from a ranking perspective, PHP is not very up in not among the top 3, but a lot of web app use PHP, right? So the talk about like, okay, the thing going one way or another way, from my perspective, is not relevant. The market is huge. You're talking a market that have hundreds of billions of potential. Right? As a developer, do you care? Not really. If you go in the shop that have a niche market that going to a certain very narrow vertical, but that vertical has business potential of 20, 30 billion, so 100 billion, and it's very unique. It may not as big as the iPhone market, but because it's unique and it has its value, and you happen to be a specialist in that field, you actually get paid a lot more for for that knowledge. It's like the Windows CE stuff I worked on for all this year. I bet that most of the folks on this meeting probably don't know what the heck Windows CE is. It's a Microsoft product that was released in 1996, right? And the last version that they released was 2013, and then they dropped it. Right? And the funny thing is that back in 2009 or so, I did a fix on Windows CE, and I had to contact Microsoft support to basically to provide a code for them as a fix that I created it. And a Microsoft support team don't know what Windows CE is. So anyway, I mean, there are a lot of different vertical market out there, you know. So yeah, and we're not living in a perfect world, you know. So the notion of this language is better than that language, I don't buy it. You know, it really had a lot to do with you. Right? If you're good in programming and you have a good, you know, problem resolution mindset, programming language is a tool. You know, you can pick up a programming language pretty quick if you know one already.
All right. Actually, I'm going to ask, does anybody else have any more questions, follow up? Okay. So I guess I'll just kind of like ask you like a few more things, and then I guess we can call it a night. And I also want to give people a chance. Actually, I'll just do that right now. Give people a chance to just, besides this particular meetup, if you wanted to just say who you are, what your, you know, current stack is, and, you know, what do you hope to get out of this meetup group, that would be kind of cool. It's like a little mini icebreaker. I wanted to just reintroduce that one more time.
Okay, well, let me jump into here. I joined this meetup group, you know, because JavaScript, pretty simple. And I know that, you know, at least, you know, for the next 5 years, JavaScript is pretty important. Right? Now, I am using TypeScript a lot, but you cannot really deal with TypeScript if you don't know JavaScript. Right? So the JavaScript is still there. And there are a few things I am still in a learning mode, you know, like dealing with JavaScript as a module. Right? I love to figure that one out. I tend to use JavaScript function in place of namespace, because in C#, you know, we focus a lot on namespace. Right? It's a way that we organize things, and it's mainly, you know, how C# works. So in JavaScript, I tend to use namespace, kind of mimic that environment. That worked out pretty good for me. Right.
Right. Yeah, I can see that too with TypeScript. TypeScript is it's a lot more similar to like something like C or Java. So I can see why people do that.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, just basically though, I wanted to just, oh, okay, we got somebody. Paul wrote, my weakness is front end. As a .NET developer, I work with a legacy app that uses vanilla JavaScript and jQuery as our front end, so I don't get much exposure to the latest hot frameworks as React. I'm hoping to see something on React and .NET. He wrote earlier too that he wanted to see a presentation with React and .NET. Yeah, any thoughts, Sam?
Well, React is something on my agenda. I've been doing quite a bit on Angular, just because a lot of legacy .NET app, you know, is using Angular. And I'm show you real quick here. And it's kind of built into.
And while you're doing that, I want to ask, why do people, especially the enterprise, you know, world, why do they like Angular over React? I keep hearing that.
It's not they like Angular over React. It's just because their Angular got into the enterprise environment early on, right? So once you start a project on Angular, it's kind of hard to change. You have a huge code base that's been put together.
Sure.
Right? And that's it. No other reason. Just Angular been there first, right? So unless, you know, people decide to rewrite that app completely, but then even if they rewrite the app completely, they're already familiar with Angular. Right?
Sure.
So now,
time, I suppose.
Yeah. So anyway, I just want to show you real bit. I'm just going to create a new project real quick here, and I want to show you the template here. Right? And you can see here, Angular right there, React right there. Okay. So I mean, it's there. The question is, you know, are you willing to jump in and, you know, figure out the nuts and bolts, you know, in this project? And once you create a project, you know, with a wizard, you know, it pull in like what, 200 mega file for you, right? and it worked. I mean, it'll show you how to do a hello world real quick. But still, if you don't understand, the Angular or React, plumbing, under the hood, it's not going to help. So the bottom line, you still have to learn the fundamental. Right? So if you want to learn the fundamental, whether it's Angular, React, or Vue, you have to have a strong foundation in JavaScript. Now, Angular, the newer version of Angular and React, they both have been rewrite in TypeScript. Okay. Now, if you have a firm understanding in JavaScript, understanding TypeScript is easy. It just adds some type control into it. That's about it. But the language, basically TypeScript, JavaScript is TypeScript. You can write JavaScript and you save it as a TypeScript file, it'll run just fine. Right? So
I was just gonna add, and to your case, Paul, do you ever, like if you, because I think that made it pretty easy to show you like how to create a new ASP.NET Core Web application here. And it kind of shows you can use these different templates. I mean, it just, like on the side, do you ever like, create these, projects and just like play around with them? Because I would recommend that. That's definitely something that I, do quite often, especially if I'm at a company that like basically just uses like, one stack and that's basically it. And I never really get to practice anything else. I usually homework on the side or.
Yeah, I mean, as a developer, you have to invest personal time in learning stuff. There's no other way. If you cannot learn it on the job, right, then spend a couple hours a weekend, and just jump in and try something new. Right, just like what I'm showing the screen here. Just create a project. It will run out of the box. At least it'll show you a Hello World app, right? Then then you can just jump in and figure it out. Walk the code. Right? Again, if you don't have a firm foundation in JavaScript, you cannot walk the code, right? To learn, you have to be able to walk through the code and see what the code is doing, and that's how you learn.
So with Angular, right, in your experience, do you think people are using Angular 1, or are they kind of like, that's what I keep kind of hearing sometimes, like when I talk to people in the enterprise world, and then a lot of them kind of feel frustrated because it's, abandoned and now it's Angular 10 or 11. I don't even know. So what is going on in that space?
Basically Angular 2 is where it cut off. I mean, it's you have a legacy Angulars, right? And then you have Angular 2 and on, right?
Right.
From Angular 2 and on, every new version, they do have new stuff and things do break, between different versions, right? But other than that, the structure in general is the same. Right? So if you inherit a Angular 4.0 app, for example, well, then you have to use 4.0 resources to support that app.
Sure.
The problem that I see that really common, through a couple of projects I work on is that you have a Angular 4.0 app, right? And then you have a new developer come in and he decided to do something with Angular 8, Angular 9.
Right.
Okay?
So,
yes. So what happened is that, well, 80% of stuff would work, for example, right? And then a few things breaks.
Sure.
And because they depend on the framework so much and they don't spend time to dig into the framework to actually learn some of the under the hood stuff, they don't know what breaks. They just know it break and they can't fix it.
Okay, so you're saying basically it's not just about the Angular aspects, although it could be, but maybe some stuff is foundational still.
Yeah, I mean, if you let's say you maintain an old app, right, and it's not an app that you create, so you don't know everything. Well, right. Stay with whatever that was there, right? Don't introduce something new that you cannot handle. That's why a lot of problems happen is people are trying to mix different versions in it.
Sure.
Right? And when they do that, then they have, spaghetti code base that they cannot manage.
Right. So from an engineering perspective, you think that, I'm just going to say it, but like when you're working with an app, especially an older app, it's better to work with what's already built. And then when you have, the full understanding of that particular, software application, then you can go on to create or recreate it in a new style, right? With something
Yeah.
new.
Well, basically, I adopt this mindset, okay? If it ain't broke, don't touch it. Because I find a lot of developers, they just can't stand having old stuff, so they want to upgrade it.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Yeah, and that's what the problem is. Yeah, you upgrade it, but the question is this: does your business manager appreciate that? They may not, right? Because a business manager, they don't care about language, they don't care about technology, they only care about I want to get this information. If I can get this information in a prettier format, yeah, I like it. But as long as I can get to the information, I really don't care what format it is, right? So whether it's Angular 3, 4, or Angular 8, it doesn't matter, right? And if it's working, and there's no reason to update and touch it, don't touch it. Right?
To that aspect, do you think it's easier than for the developer coming in? Like, let's say you're a new junior or mid-level developer. You went to some coding boot camp and, they taught you about React. But, when they come into the job, they're like, nobody's using React,
Right.
All
right.
.NET and old JavaScript. What am I supposed to do? Do you recommend them like just kind of like?
Well, there are, that is the people skill side of work that a lot of developers fail. Okay, now you are someone new, you come into a new turf, right? You have a couple of old guys that they've been there 5 years, 10 years.
Right.
They've been doing things the old way, right? And the reason that they've been there 5 years, 10 years, because things do work. Because if things don't work, they won't be able to hang around that long.
Right.
So you have to respect them. Yes, they don't know the newer stuff. Now the question is, does the newer stuff really better? Right? That's a questionable thing. That's opinions, right? And in a work environment, you cannot be too opinionated. Right? You have to go with the flow. If the guy been there 5 years, they have more seniority, right? I mean, their influence is stronger than a new developer, right? If you want to, change, you have to convince the old team to adopt the change. If you cannot convince the old team to adopt the change, don't change it. You don't have what it takes to change it.
Sure. Okay, I think that's pretty good. Does anybody else have any more questions? Was this a helpful meetup? Any other, sidebars?
I can kind of share my opinion on the choice between Angular and React, and maybe why enterprises might have a preference one way or the other. Statistically, it's kind of it seems like it's a dead heat in the war of the front end. But one of the differences between Angular and React is that Angular is more of a full framework for an application, to where you kind of have to buy in to to the whole MVVM architecture, where with React it's more of a component model where you can author components and build out your pages that way. So if you have a preference for larger scale frameworks, you might have a preference for Angular. And I've worked at a few places that started with Angular 1.x, and after investing all of the time and effort into developing solutions with Angular 1x, they decided to go with React. because there's such a huge difference between Angular 1X and Angular 2 Plus, that there really isn't much that you can retain when moving out of Angular 1.x. So, but I'm seeing both of them. I don't really see one being more popular than the other at this point.
Okay, I think you hit right on the nail right there, right? Yeah, Angular is a full framework. I think take a lot more to learn than React, right? It's good and it's bad. Now for the enterprise, they like structure, right? So Angular provides structure to follow, right? So it, once they get used to that structure, they just want to maintain it. React, on the other hand, I think it's tend to be easier to pick up than Angular. It's more componentized, and I think Vue sort of adapt the best from React and Angular, right? But Vue just come into the picture much later. That's why the market share is still quite small, right? But they have a very strong momentum from what I can see.
So I think I'll add my 2 cents with all this, right? Too, and just kind of like experience. Whenever I've worked at like these enterprise companies, I think a lot of the architecture follows this, pattern, the model view controller pattern. That seems to be, very, very dominant in engineering decisions in general. And something like React, right? React doesn't really have that same structure. So, it's just more, I would think with React, it's getting that way. It's starting to become a little bit more of like, an MVC if you really kind of work with all the different parts, moving parts out there. But by itself, it is really just, its main job is to just make it easier to recreate views on the fly, right? So it fits into maybe like, a larger MVC framework, right? Where you have your typical models, which do the heavy calculations for the customers. As you saw in Samuel's app, a lot of the stuff that he was doing was, SQL manipulation in C# and basically working with tables. That's definitely all like model, whereas controller is, more or less just kind of like, the different, commands that you send over to the machines. So let's go over to the models, and then maybe the model comes back with the calculation and sends it back to the view, and it sends it through the controller. So, this pattern has been around for a long time. And so when a lot of these engineers, look at something like Angular, they think, oh, okay, this kind of follows that same format, right? Okay, now it's in JavaScript, and here's where I write my models in Angular, and then here's where I have my controller, and then here's where I have my view. So okay, it follows that same pattern. This is something to me that I can follow as far as structure. That's what I think Samuel was trying to say. Whereas with React, it's really not there. It's kind of like, okay, I can build components, but what about my controllers? How do I connect it to the model? Oh, I need some other framework, or I need some other library. Let me like pull it down from NPM. Which one's the best one? Oh, I guess I'll read a Medium article. So that could throw off a lot of people, especially if they don't really have, if they have never really kind of engineered like a full stack application together. I mean, there are tutorials, but I don't think like in the enterprise sense there are. So, if anybody wants to add to that, I'd love to hear your take.
Well, another thing that, because there are a lot of different type of app there, right? I mean, React become popular basically because of, Facebook was behind it, right? So they have a lot of way in driving this framework, right? And, you also have a huge market, for mobile app, right? So mobile app, in an enterprise, when they develop, consumer-facing mobile app, the thinking a little bit different. So that's a whole different thinking there. When I talk about enterprise app, I'm really talk about the app that used within the enterprise. And that environment, probably will not change for a while. Because if you look at accounting system, are they going to change? No, they're not going to change. It will be the way it is, for a very long time to come. Right? And a lot of enterprise still using, spreadsheet all over the place. Right?
Sure.
Right? So, I actually see, in a few enterprise that I work with, they have separate team that deal with, let's say the internal enterprise app, for example, okay? And then they have a separate team that deal with, let's call them consumer facing app, right? That mindset and expectation are quite different. So let's say I am working for McDonald's, for example, right? Fast food chain, and I want to create a mobile app for consumer. Right? That's a whole different scenario there. Right? And from that environment there, what are you going to use? We're looking at a combination of mobile native mobile app and progressive web app. Right? And the tooling and consideration is a little bit different from doing an internal enterprise app.
Right. Okay. So it looks like I had a comment from Zoom chat, and it says that this is Nate. Nate Wamens, I guess. He says that he is a JavaScript developer and he uses React, Node, Express, SQL, MongoDB, and basically just wanted to meet some of the other engineers. He says, awesome presentation, Samuel, and thank you for sharing your expertise and perspective. Okay. All right. Well, I like to keep these things pretty much running all the way till maybe like 9 o'clock, and then that's pretty much like a hard stop. So we have about 8 minutes, but if everybody is pretty content with what we discussed, then I think we can call it a night. But that said, pretty much here's kind of like the last call for any feedback, comments. And while that's going on, you can either shout it out or you can cut me off. You can also chat. But I'm just going to mention to everybody who asked earlier that you can get this video on youtube.com/JavaScriptLA. I'll go ahead and share my screen. And that way you'll be able to see what I'm talking about. And give me 1 second here. So this is the main website, javascriptla.net. That's where you want to go to find out about upcoming meetups. And then, so we have one more. This will be on September 10th. This will be on web accessibility, which I think is an extremely important topic. So be sure to go ahead and sign up for that particular meetup. It'll be a good one. Samuel kind of talked a little bit about carving a niche, especially, in the web developer world where there's so much, so many things that people need to be responsible for. So I think web accessibility is kind of one of those things that, is becoming sort of like a big topic, especially nowadays where a lot of companies can get sued if they don't make, their websites accessible. So, this is something definitely, you might want to pay attention to. And then going to the YouTube channel, basically, again, that's just youtube.com/JavaScriptLA. And basically here, you can subscribe, and then like all of our meetup videos will go here. I move these things out of the way actually, so you can see a little bit better. I also, so that's me, I'm VJ. And I'll also, record videos. Some of these videos are, people asking me for tutorials or, explanations. So I have one for ES6, one on basic JavaScript functions, one on React. You might want to check out these playlists. Advice and mentorship. I'll talk about Windows, Mac, and Linux. It's a popular topic. And yeah, we're just building out this channel to essentially, help people learn to code and become better engineers all around. So, if you know people that want to get better at coding, be sure to share the word and, help us reach more people. And then finally, I do want to say that, in addition to this short playlist on ES6 right here, this is like maybe under 30 minutes. I do have a full course on Udemy, which you can go to and basically check it out. It's not in Japanese, but I'm using a friend's laptop, and so that's why that is showing up here. But the course is in English, obviously, and you can learn ES6 if you need to, which is important if you're going to take on frameworks like React. And that's basically what I got.
Cool. I didn't know you have a course on Udemy.
Yeah, I recently launched it. So it was something that, like I had a course from last year on ES6, but I felt like, it might make more sense to put on Udemy than Teachable.
That's good. Actually, that's good. I actually have a collection of Udemy courses as reference. I used to buy a lot of books. So nowadays I don't buy books. I look for stuff on Udemy.
Right. It's a lot cheaper to just use Udemy, I think. Yeah.
Well, and it, it's kind of interactive. Some of the instructor are fairly active. You can actually post questions, right? Mm-hmm. And get some response from it. It's a good resources.
Yeah, definitely.
So how long did it take you to put together this course?
So this course I think took me, well, it was the first time I ever did any kind of Udemy course. Well, that's why I still don't have a lot of people in it, but I'm working my way up because I'm trying the ropes. But I think it took me about 3 months to figure out. 3 months, yeah. And I had to go and figure out, okay, I need a mic, and then obviously, I think the hardest part about doing any of these kind of courses is that you have to hear yourself talk at the end. Like when you go back and press play and it's like, oh, why do I sound like this? I don't even sound, intelligent. Let me re-record the whole thing all over again. And so then you end up cutting a lot of stuff and then re-recording and then trying to make it sound smarter and better. But eventually I got to a point where I started feeling really confident with what I was putting out. And then, I think that this one came out pretty well. And actually, now that this is out of the way, I can, pump these out a lot faster, because if you've been paying attention to the YouTube channel, basically put a video out, and these are all really, really good quality lately.
Mm-hmm. Well, just like everything else, take practice. I mean, you've been doing this stuff for a long time.
Yeah, I've been standing in front of people earlier, with a meetup group, but I think with recording yourself, it's a lot harder because you don't have any feedback immediately, right? It all comes later. So, YouTube channel, I immediately see who subscribed and who liked, and how many view counts we go with. So for me, that's kind of the motivator. And I think we're doing well. Some videos of mine are starting to, catch up. I think I've been able to start getting more than, several thousand views. Mm-hmm. Pretty good. So it's just more practice. But yeah, so I think that is pretty much it. And unless anybody has anything last minute to say, if not, then we'll call it a night. All right.
Hey.
Oh, go ahead.
Hi, Vijay. Hi. Hi, this is Yan. I actually do have a question. I'm currently a full-time student, and was wondering, by the way, thank you for Robbie clarifying the big difference between Angular and React, and that's really helpful. And I was wondering if that will be a consideration for a company for the hiring decision, by knowing just one of those frameworks.
So are you asking me or are you asking Robbie? Yeah, just to
Anyone, it's fine. Just
okay.
curious.
Well, let me jump into this one here. Right? Basically, when you think about a company, think about money, right? I mean, company are in business to make money, right? And if they hire somebody, right, they, you know, would they want to train you on something that you don't know, right? They want you to hit the ground running. So obviously, if you know, let's say if the company that you're trying to apply for and if internally they're using Angular, right? Guess who's gonna get hired? The one that know Angular.
Yeah, actually, I'll follow up with this too, right? So, in my opinion, this is me speaking as VJ, the mentor, right? So, a little bit of free mentorship. Basically, in my opinion, you should be practicing with a lot of different like frameworks, pretty much week to week. Myself included in that. I'm always like writing stuff down and saying, okay, this is something I'll probably need to pay attention to at some point. So I'll put it in like a notebook. And then, when I have the free time, I'll go and learn, maybe that week or that weekend, I'll spend like a couple hours with it just to like make sure I, at least okay at doing the Hello World app, right? Or a to-do list. And so by doing it, frequently, then what happens is when the interview time comes up, when it's like, oh, okay, it's time for an interview. If I talk to, some company and they're like, well, we only use Angular here, right? We don't really use React. We're looking for Angular people. If I've done, a lot of pre-work beforehand, it doesn't matter to me if they use Angular or React or whatever, because 3 months down the road or 6 months down the road, if you're smart enough and you've been doing like all of your homework, you've been making these apps on your own, like just for fun, you can pretty much tell them what they should be doing for their next app. So, like don't get hung up on, oh, I need to learn Angular to join this company. That's probably just like the initial thing. Yeah, okay, so whoever's, interviewing you at that time, may say, yeah, well, how, like, what is an observable? Tell me about RxJS. And they might grill you like really hard on that. And then find out like afterwards, like when you actually join the company, you're probably not even doing those things, right? You're probably doing something like very like minuscule, like doing HTML or CSS, maybe working within like, small component of Angular or writing a component. But, a few months down the line, maybe the entire staff could change, the management could change, and so you don't want to get caught like just being like, oh, I guess I'll spend, all of my time only just doing this one thing. Because if you do that, that's like a sure pathway to like getting fired. So don't do that. Rather think more like an engineer. And when I say that, I actually mean like think as a problem solver. Don't be like, oh, I need to use, Angular all the time or React all the time. Like if somebody says to you, just like Samuel was saying too, like it is a business. So at the end of the day, the business needs to, get something done, right? Like they need to build like an app that, advertises, their whatever services they have. And so if you know a way, right, that can get that problem solved, and you execute it for them, guess what? You're going to have the job. They're going to pay attention to you. But if you're like fighting like internally with other developers, or you're just kind of like arguing about things that don't really matter. I mean, they matter, in some sense, because some of these frameworks like Angular and React, like there is a difference, right? So Angular, definitely higher learning curve. React, a little bit easier. And basically, business kind of depends on that too, right? So like the good thing about React is that you can fast prototype and you can build stuff really quickly, and then you can be done, right? You can have a proof of concept within maybe like 1 week. Angular, it might take you a little bit longer, but at the end of the day, like the business has to decide, well, do we want to spend a lot more time on this project and get it really solid? Well, then yeah, you might have to like spend a lot more time with React and really kind of drill down. So that's what I recommend. Like, you know, just week after week after week, you know, whatever free time you have, just practice something, maybe go deeper with one of the things you're doing, but don't get hung up. Like, just learn to think better in terms of engineering decisions, and that'll make you like an all-around solid, wealthy person.
Thank you, Vijay. It's a really good advice. And I do like you and Samuel was mentioned these from the business point of view. I actually am working for marketing for quite a while and transitioning to be a developer right now. So kind of, because my bootcamp is teaching the React, so just curious if it's necessary to know some different frameworks first. But yeah, it's a really good advice. Thank you a lot.
Of course, yeah. One more person wrote, this is Irving. He says, I'm from Mexico and I worked with Principal, Java, and C#. Awesome presentation. I don't get why you don't have followers on GitHub. Well, people can follow. And he shared his LinkedIn. So I do recommend everybody, if you want to share your LinkedIn as a way to connect, that's really good. You can do that right now. If you want to reach out to me, I'll put my email in here just so you can reach out to me. So this is my JavaScriptLA email. And then if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, I'll just put my LinkedIn as well. All right, I think that's basically it. I don't want to keep everybody here forever. So thank you all for coming. Thank you, Samuel, for the presentation. I'll see you all at the next meetup, as well as on this YouTube channel. If you have further questions, do email me or LinkedIn me, and maybe you'll have a video up. All right, thanks again. Thanks everyone for coming. See you. Have a good night.
Thanks. Night.
Night.
Good day.
Thanks, Vijay.
Yep, thank you.